Hey everyone. The reflection today during the Friday Forum was a series of conversations about the skills gap that ranged from topics like underground drilling to client onboarding. And the discussion was that relationship between what automation looks like, not necessarily artificial intelligence, but automation and what it means to redefine those jobs for people who are engaged in the automation or might be affected by it as it's some kind of improvement. And the takeaways was what do we need to do to guide people with this automation as we're slowly implementing it, and then redefine those jobs and help people develop those new skills that might be like, for example, in the case of client onboarding, if you're taking someone out of that role or never getting them in as a new hire to the data entry of client onboarding, what would it look like for them to do something more sophisticated, maybe a few steps after that data entry and that onboarding part is completed? What does that look like as a new job in the company, and a job that's then improved and frankly elevating people's levels of skills and insights because they're not doing that rudimentary thing. It's more of a thoughtful kind of a conversation that might even be more interactive with the client as opposed to a piece of paper or several pieces of paper. And with that underground drilling, when you're looking at the sophistication of what you can't see underground as you're drilling, and what might happen in the case of something that you might not see in the all of the plumbing and things underneath the ground, and how it might be affecting the main line versus the house. It's those things you don't see, and you have to know by doing it. So the takeaway was reflecting on some early experiences, and I was reflecting on my own experiences too, of inspiring that curiosity about learning the rest of the company, or at least some of those related responsibilities to your job. And I remember when I did that, it was about getting my job done as quickly as I can, being as productive as I can, and then exploring some of those other services. And although I was not necessarily structured in my processes, it certainly wasn't encouraged either. But being in a family company, as you know, many people are hired because they're either known or related to the founder, or like me, it was my professor who knew a fellow graduate from my college who was hired by the owner and set me up with the HR director, and I didn't screw it up and I was hired. So it really wasn't anything spectacular in my skills, and I did start in an entry level kind of a position. It was that curiosity, though, that allowed me to quickly elevate, and it was the family company experience that actually, because it was unstructured, gave me the opportunity, once I finished the work I was hired to do by about 1 or 2 o'clock, rather than looking for another cup of coffee or some small talk at a cubicle, I went to explore to see how I could pitch in and help somebody else in one of those jobs that might come after my job, so that I could learn how they were getting things done and how it might even relate to some of the things that I was doing to prepare them for their jobs in the job I was doing. And so when we looked at automation this week, it was bringing some of that curiosity into the job. And although it might not seem really productive right now, the gains in the productivity happened within about 3 to 6 months. And I saw it in my own experience. It was a really great opportunity for me to learn. And when I turned and shared it with people who were, like in a family company, very much focused on doing their job and doing it really well, it was that idea of how sometimes people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to bother anybody else, or they feel like it might just reflect negatively on them, even if it isn't a lack of knowledge. It's just you're bothering other people, you're asking questions. Or maybe it's people feel like they should be the subject matter expert and they feel this need to figure it out on their own. And so the relationship with the automation was really more about curiosity and helping people to understand the relationships between their jobs, and not getting into a big process analysis, because we're not looking to be consultants here. We're looking to make those small improvements, recognizing that something we could automate because it makes sense. And the reason why we're doing it is so we can help those people who might be doing those jobs, or maybe like I was, that recent hire, to then elevate to do something a little bit more sophisticated, more valuable for them as people, to make them feel more valued and important in the company, is also making your company more valuable and your company experience more valuable. So the relationship with automation, it's actually a side-by-side comparison. It's a matter of looking at the automation and what changes with the job, and how can people learn to do something a little bit more sophisticated, or maybe recognize those relationships between the jobs that they do and maybe the jobs that come next, or even the jobs that come before. One takeaway for you is a great book. It's actually the first business book that I read, and I still remember it. A book by Eliyahu Goldratt called The Goal. And that's a book all about throughput. He's an Israeli physicist who applied science to manufacturing. Great book, great inspiration, by the way, if you're really confused about this whole conversation of artificial intelligence and or automation. His description in that scientific application of throughput and what it means to get the jobs done with everybody and all the related tasks. Great learning experience and a great story, by the way. The story is the goal, and the actual science is called The Theory of Constraints. So if you haven't read that book, Eliyahu Goldratt, The Goal, Theory of Constraints, great book, great takeaways. See you next week at the Friday. Thanks.